Kevin, how's my is it
Good. You're
okay?
you're good this
Good.
week.
I this time I'm checking. I'm have this new thing where I check both of our microphones before we start. So
I was just telling John it's the most bizarre thing, man. Like I check make sure all of my settings are right, and the moment I come in, it switches my settings to seemingly whatever it wants to. So like as soon as I come in, I have to, and it's
yeah.
weird. Like I was able to change it when you weren't in,
hmm
but the moment you come in, I can't. I have to pop out and change them and come back in. It's really weird.
Yeah. All right. Um, hey everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the Awkward Watersport Guys podcast. On today's show, we have a really special guest, a great friend, a longtime water sport operator, John Stevens from Luther's Watersports in Destin, is joining us. But before we get into our show, we have a huge announcement to make, and that is the Water Sport and Boat Droppers Forum, has been announced or is or is going to be announced right now, and that is at St. Augustine, Florida, October 21st and October 21st to the 22nd are the dates. And by the time this episode goes live, we are going to have links to where you can get your tickets. And we still got some programming to work out with our speakers, but we have 2 full days of immersive learning, roundtables, networking, and it's going to be. We got this resort right on the beach in St. Augustine, the Guy Harvey Resort. So it's going to be like really, water sport esque, I guess you could say. Um,
Guy Harvey is the most touristy thing. Like when you see
it's so
somebody wearing a
touristy,
Guy
yeah.
Harvey shirt, you're like, yeah, he's definitely a local.
Yeah, Guy Harvey shirt. Yeah, you got to be 65 years old, and
Was the Panama Jack
the
Resort
Panama,
not
the Panama,
available?
the Guy Harvey shirt and the Panama Jack sunglasses and the hat. Like that is like your like Midwestern
And even
attire.
bigger news, if you present your AARP cards, you get a 10% discount to this year's water sport conference. You asked for it, you got it. Not Orlando, not Miami, St. Augustine, Florida.
Yeah.
Be there or break a hip.
Well, I'm pretty happy that we're doing it somewhere other than Orlando. Even though I Orlando's like great, it's like centrally located, easy to
No, it's
get to.
not. Orlando's terrible.
But
Let's be honest.
I mean, we're the water sport. We should be on the water. So I thought that was cool to kind of have it on
St.
the beach.
Augustine's like great, man.
Oh, I love
I
it.
actually really like St. Augustine. I'm not even trying to hate. And I'm pretty sure you guys know I keep it a buck. You know what I mean? If I thought it was gonna suck, I'd be like, yeah, it's gonna be in St. Augustine. Super weird. Like Greg and I went back and forth on this subject for a while
We
because
had
I was
three
like,
places. We had Destin, Tampa, and St. Augustine. And at first, we thought it was going to be Tampa. And some of you, I think I've told it was going to be at Tampa, but our event planner found the resort in St. Augustine. It was the perfect size, great venue,
does
and we
St.
just
Augustine have the rentable? How's my levels? I'm not even seeing me talk.
it's good. Yeah, you're good.
Because I'm not even seeing like anything pop up on my.
No, you're fine. You're not
Sorry.
typing.
Do you think that St. Augustine has those like rentable scooters made by Lyft?
I'm sure they do.
God,
Maybe,
I
I don't
hope they
know.
do. I read it was so much fun. Steve and I rented scooters in Tampa, and I almost wanted to have the forum there just so we
Yeah.
could relive the scooters.
hmm
The
Are we
scooters
going
are
to rent
fun.
some wave runners?
Not without not without your liability insurance, you're not. Your personal liability insurance. I'd love to rent this scooter. I've got $1 million for my company. Sorry, sir.
So, just a couple quick notes because we're going to be talking about the conference pretty much every show leading up to the arrival date. But it's $200 for operators, $300 for non-operators. We have sponsorship opportunities. The ticket does include 2 meals, event access because we're going to have some nightly events. We'll have vendor booths so you can kind of learn about the newest technology and products out there in the water sport industry. So we're keeping it kind of small. Like we had an idea of like, let's let's make this really big this year. And from the feedback we get, I think everyone likes the ability to have it a smaller room where you have more one-on-one time with different operators. You can have small group conversations. So what that means is that if you don't get your ticket, then you're out of luck. So book your tickets early, get involved in this
Hashtag
because
FOMO.
yeah, FOMO, exactly. Yeah, because last year we had 115, I think, people that showed up. So we have 100 tickets. That's it. Once it's gone, it's gone. We don't have a huge venue to hold a lot of people. So if you miss out, you miss out. So the link to the tickets is going to be in the show notes. I'll also be sharing it on the Facebook group. So you'll get info there. So that's that. Now to the main attraction, John Stevens. How are you doing, sir?
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys. And how's your season, guys? Because it's been slow here until this weekend.
I think it's us. I like I was in Tampa and Bonita Springs and Clearwater and that whole portion of Florida, and they were just like, man, like I mean the beaches were packed. I mean, it was definitely a lot warmer there, so I think that's a kind of a portion of it too. It's been kind of it feels like we've had a long run of cold, but I'm always busy, John. I'm always busy. If I'm not renting boats and jet skis, then I'm delivering bounce houses, which is it's a huge passion of mine. I really love it.
How's your
Do
how's your how's your
anything.
season been, John? You said it's been a little slow.
Yeah, it's been off this whole spring, but normally it's based off of weather. I feel like there wasn't as many people initially, but the June bookings are coming in pretty strong, and this past weekend we were pretty dang busy, so it's coming. So
We had
Are
two
your
weekends in a row that we had at least one Saturday, either Saturday or Sunday. We had more bookings than we did last year, and that was the first time in a long time where I can say that this year actually beat out last year for books. So that's a small glimmer of hope.
you're not busy with your politicking?
oh, it depends on what day it is.
I don't. Do you ever watch? You probably, I'm assuming, do not have. You're not like a TikTok guy, are you?
Tic Tacs? You mean eat Tic Tacs?
No, no, no.
No, no, I don't have TikTok.
there are these guys called his name's like Chad and JT. Have you ever seen those on Facebook? The two guys that troll uh pretty much any city council meeting they go to. Like it is the most. Greg, can you like pull up like a YouTube like a YouTube short? Because I think
uh,
really I think like the whole world should be privy to Chad and JT. Pull up
well,
Chad and JT. It's so good. It's worth it. Like, let's have fun. Let's have a little bit of fun on this. Let me show John what I'm talking about so he can properly see, so the world can see Chad and JT. Because, like, me talking about it just does not do it justice. Anybody that's ever been to a city council meeting, and since you are now in city council and have been to a ton of city council meetings, like, they are just the world's best thing ever for trolling city councils. Just Google Chad and JT City Council.
While he's looking that up, growing up, I thought I'd never get involved with politics or government. I hated that stuff, and in
so
fact, presentations, I hated it. In fact, I remember in high school, I'd always have a newer version of Microsoft Word so I can get out every presentation because I couldn't open my slides, and I did that on purpose.
Yeah, I don't know how. I really don't know how you do it. What'd you find,
So,
Greg?
so just to give some context, John is a Destin City Council member. So I don't think we made that point. Okay, yeah, I have it pulled up here. Let me see if I can share my screen and it will play here.
It's so worth it.
Okay. All right. Can you hear that?
No.
You guys can't hear that?
Nope.
Okay. Well, I don't know.
We can't figure out sound on this.
I've never done like a screen share and recording at the same time.
I
So
swear to God, we have.
I think so.
Oh
You guys
my
can see the
God.
screen, right?
Yeah.
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 Hit play.
Okay.
Oh God. What a wind up to nothing.
Oh. Kristen, you can edit this out.
Anyway, these two guys are like they're complete, like they pretend to be like surfer bros, right? There's always like hey city council, it'd be super chill if like they're asking for like house parties if like the city can sponsor like a fraternity house party, or they want to like have city council give their blessing for, you know, people that go on private yachts to have parties. Like it's the most ridiculous. Like they're on TikTok and YouTube. But when I cash out and I'm done running boat rentals and jet ski rentals, I want that to be like my thing. I just want to show up at city councils where I don't give a shit and just troll city council for 20 or 30 minutes. It's about absolutely nothing. I don't know how you do it.
You only have 3 minutes to talk though, so we only have to listen to you for 3 minutes.
I would bring in 5 of my friends and have them give me their time.
Well, John, go ahead and give us a little bit of background on how you got into water sports and a little about what you're doing
All
right
right.
now. Yeah.
So pretty much when I was a kid, I played video games all day. I didn't go to the beach. I wasn't on boats. I mean, I got my degree in computer science. I used to install internet cafes on military bases all over the world. Once the first iPhone came out, I realized I had to pivot somehow, and so my parents and I we saw our opportunity to buy a water sports business, and the guy that sold it to us said, "Hey, this is going to be one of the easiest things you ever do."
So accurate.
Yeah. So pretty much, growing up, I was grunt labor. My dad, he answered the phones nonstop. I remember he would answer the phones at midnight, like taking drunk phone calls and making reservations. And of course, they never showed up the next day. Um, my dad was crazy. I still remember he overbooked me with 3 extra boats one time, and I caught it early. I'm like, Dad, you need to call these people and figure it out. He said, No, no, you got it. And I didn't know how to add any more boats. So I mean, my
John,
mom, she always,
real quick, I
yeah, yeah,
want to
go ahead,
just
go ahead.
your dad is the funniest guy. So John was one of the first companies to sign up for Trip Shock. So we've been partners for almost 15 years on Trip Shock. He's like maybe customer number 3. So I go down to the dock one time, and we just got set up. So we're trying to figure out the sales tax and everything. And I was telling your dad, and your dad's like, "Don't listen to John. Don't worry, we got enough tax. We'll cover it." And he just so nonchalant about it. It's like the government already has enough tax. Like we don't have to worry about tax. I'm like, I think you're gonna have to worry about sales tax.
Right.
I like that you pivoted from computer science to pontoons and jet skis. Like,
Well, that's because it was
the
supposed to be
future is
easy.
now. We have to get into boats and jet skis. Like,
I just love like your dad was like built for water sports, and you were kind of like, you know, needed to ease in a little bit, but your dad was like
Hmm.
the epitome of like water sport operators in, you know, the 2000s. So it was funny.
Oh yeah, and and I had my mom too. My mom handled all the paperwork. I suck at paperwork. And of course, once my wife came around, she helped me with all the graphics. And I still remember my wife one time. She made a reservation for the wrong week. It was like, and the customers ended up showing up on Memorial Day weekend. There's not a boat in the harbor. Customers pissed off. My wife like upset of the whole situation. And the cool part was like she came around and she came up with a confirmation number that we started putting on our paper reservation books back then. And even my dad, he had this magnet board um, that it was based off the military. When you checked in customers, or I'm sorry, when you went to work, you moved your magnet over. Then you were at work. When you left work, you moved the magnet back over, and then you were no longer there. And we used that to check in customers back in the time, and it was really cool because later, I still remember Greg first approached me about the idea of a digital reservation system. What was it called, Greg?
Book with
Reservation
RS.
system, or is it book with
Yeah, reservation system. That was the name of it.
there's a
RS.
there's a slight there's a thing about Greg that like nobody knows. Greg is really terrible at naming things. I mean,
100%.
I was like, he was like, what's the name of our conference going to be? Watersport Forum. I'm like, what's your dog's name? Dog?
Probably
This is what-
DOG.
Yeah, I remember people are like, your reservation system's name, reservation system. I'm like, well, it's RRS, and like still is reservation system. Yeah, it's true story.
Yeah, very creative, Greg. But hey, I still
I'd
go ahead.
also like to note that when they look at the video, they'll be able to see this, but you said John's dad was the epitome of water sport operators in the 2000s. I would like to highlight that John still is the epitome of water sport operators in the 2000s, like from the Costa glasses to the damn visor, the faded Yamaha sun visor to the like slightly long hair. Like John, you are the water sport operator from like 2000, 2001, and you are still there, man. Like I 100%.
He had to ease into it though. That wasn't who he was in the beginning.
No,
You know,
I would love to see
No.
it. I would love to see computer science,
no,
John.
it grew on him. The water sport industry grew on him, or at least that's
Oh yeah.
what I. But I remember the first time I met you. You haven't changed. You still have the long hair and and the visor and the sunglasses.
hmm
But that
Well,
might have been the shift. Might have happened pretty quick though when you got into Luther's.
oh yeah. Well, I still remember when I first met Greg. He was trying to introduce this idea of collecting commission and and I'll book your boat. No one on the harbor wanted to even talk to him, and I think I was one of the few just because I understood technology. And I admit we had some overbookings and stuff at the beginning, but and we still believed in the cause. And same thing with WaveRes. Like there was a lot of bugs initially, and everyone's like, "What are you doing? This it's not working." And I just believed in you, and it's come. Both products have come a long way from when you first started. So
Yeah.
Yeah, if you can find it, there's a great, like, I don't know if it's like a Chamber of Commerce video, but there's something with him doing an interview and he's got this suit on and it looks like it's about two sizes too big. Like, I don't know if in your quest of getting that, because I remember one time I mentioned it to you and you're like, yeah, I'm like trying to get that
No,
taken
it's
down.
definitely on YouTube still. You have to
Oh,
look
I
for it.
love it, man. It's so good.
I
Like,
know one day it's gonna show up in that Facebook group, and Kevin's gonna have something smart to say. But it exists,
I mean,
and
if
I
I
can't
don't
take it
post
down.
it, then I
The
gotta,
the
I want to
guy
find it.
the guy who did it, he posted on his YouTube, which I don't know the guy anymore. So it lives in the on the
Look at him. He's all
internet now.
serious. He's like hiring an attorney. Like, I don't want to be looked at as a young guy in a suit trying to start a business. Like, why? Like, you should be so happy. Like,
No,
like I'm so young looking.
yeah,
Fuck
it's
off,
fun.
man. People look at me and they're like, what are you, like about 55? And I'm like, yeah, I'm 55, dickhead. Thanks.
Well, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
oh,
We
you're
we just
good.
kind of we derailed you.
Oh,
I'll
you're
always
good.
do that.
I guess I keep on discussing some other stuff I did. So regulation kind of like sucked early on. Like I still remember like that's I think how I got into politics. When the government tried to come up all these, or the city of Destin tried to come up all these regulations on livery guys. And I remember even back in the day, they're like, "Oh, it's because of the pontoon guys why the water quality sucks now. It's these engines, blah blah blah." And so I kind of diverted, and I actually got involved with the Choctachi Basin Alliance just to actually do water quality tests and actually see what kind of how good our water actually is. Like it was the complete opposite what everyone was saying. In fact, I'm actually an oyster farmer. I don't know if y'all knew that.
I never
A
knew
So
what?
that. Oyster
A
farm.
what?
I farm oysters. So pretty much what we do is we grow oysters on our docks for 1 year, and then we all bring our oysters to one central location where the water quality is not very good, and then we drop our oysters off in that location, and it actually helps make the water better over in like in bayous and stuff like that. But
Oh, that's cool.
that's just a little side thing that I do on that's fun. But yeah, going back to the government stuff, I still remember when the livery ordinance first came, like everyone was pretty much like yelling at council, and in fact, Greg was definitely one of those too,
Hmm.
and it was one of the things where we had to kind of understand that when we yelled at these guys, they pretty much stopped listening to us, and so pretty much I just kind of came up with the idea of every time I talked, I wanted to always present an alternative solution. And I guess that's really how I started getting involved with government, and here I am now.
John, tell us just a little bit about your fleet, just to give some context on what Luther's is and
Okay.
what you offer. Yeah.
Yeah, so pretty much I've had Luther since 2005, and we started off with like 6 boats, 6 wave runners. Now I got 24 boats, still 6 wave runners, a whole bunch of kayaks, a whole bunch of paddle boards, um, and that's about it.
Man, why didn't you grow those wave runner fleet?
Well,
Six.
the
Because
issue
he's too
was,
busy oyster farming and being a fucking politician, man. Like he's like, I hate money.
well,
I
the
like
city pretty much,
happiness.
right? The city pretty much told us that we were only allotted so many vessels per car parking spot. So we pretty much we maxed out our parking lot pretty quick. And so I had no opportunity to expand at that location.
Yeah.
I've actually had opportunities to open other locations, but I did not want to spread myself out that thin. And I think for me, I was always a workaholic, and I focused on my business, and I didn't want to have one location at one spot, one another, and not be able to put full focus on it. I think at the time I didn't really trust my employees. I fully trust them now. I'm in the way now when I'm at the docks, and I kind of wish I would have knew that idea a lot earlier.
Yeah, like on the parking thing. Another thing I sort of like most of my experiences always come from like the Keys and then North Florida. Going down to the Southwest Florida and listening to their what it all comes down to is the same thing, right? Like I've come to learn this. Like I even ran into Batana, talked to him a little bit. Um, and it comes down to a very simple thing. Everybody, if you sit on city council, like I've always had this theory about water sports, right? Like very rarely do you just find some like poor kid from the inner city, from the streets, who's like involved in water sports, right? Because like at least in Detroit, in Michigan, in any capacity. Now it's not so true in North Florida, right? But do you very rarely find somebody who's like disproportionately poor that has access to boats. So at some level, you have to have some kind of like at least come from a middle class background, right? Here, maybe even lower middle class. You have a John boat, right? But you're not going to come from like a destitute, impoverished area and be like, I know about boating, unless you work cleaning one or something. And so every time one of these things pop up, I feel like it's just a bunch of basically old white people who have money and who are like, we don't like boat rentals on our waters. How do we stop it? And it goes from here all the way to fucking Tallahassee. Because even Botana said to me, he's like, those old guys up in Tallahassee, anytime it comes to boating, they're like, no. I'm like, man, that would have been awesome when you guys were fucking writing up 606. They would have put the kibosh on that. Because it's there is no regulation or education component when it comes to recreational boating. Period. There's 164,000 registered jet skis in the state of Florida. And what? I mean, I guess my best estimate would maybe be 3,000 of them are for rent, maybe 4,000 of them are for rent, high side. And there's no regulation on anybody for anything. But when it comes to us, there's like, for example, they had line of sight jet skis. So if you were in marinas or docks, the only way you could rent a jet ski was if you were on the Gulf, from a beach, from a resort. And it really just goes to show that when it comes down to these regulations, the dog in the fight is people that sit up in those seats that are like just kind of hate recreational commercial water sports. Hate it. Whether it be parasailing, whether it be jet skiing, whether it be pontoon boat rentals, they have this same view as most of the local boating community does, that what we do is an impediment to their recreation. And I think it's so fucking unfortunate that all these municipalities are not more favorable to what it is we do. And I appreciate what it is that you do, because you're one of the very few people in this industry that I've seen really get involved. I mean, oyster farming to change the water quality. I mean, to me, it's just like, man, this guy really cares, you know? So thank you,
Yeah.
man. I appreciate, I just, you know, I do want to say thank you for being you know, not just an advocate on the private side, but really putting where your money, where your mouth is, and going out there and doing as much as you do for us locally here, and fuck on the state side too.
Yeah.
You're the,
And
I don't think we mentioned that.
yeah, John was appointed by Governor DeSantis on the Boaters and Waterway Council. John, you want to just give a quick, background on what that appointment means and what that council does?
Yeah, pretty much. It's a board of, I want to say, 17 members. In fact, Botano is actually on it, and I remember meeting him for the first time. We just kind of looked at each other and just pointed at each other, and we just knew we had to talk. And so it was really interesting to kind of chat with him about that. But pretty much what we do is we kind of just make recommendations on the waterways, of how to make boating safer. That one of the big pushes that I've kind of brought up the past couple of meetings is how to get boating education to be taught into our high schools. I mean, we got driver's ed. Why can't we include boating education with that?
Mhm.
Um, and then another big one is bow riding. I guess I don't know if it was true, but someone told me that there was someone down in Senator or something like that that allowed it because they enjoyed bow riding, and now we can't make it illegal again, and all of law enforcement wants to make it illegal because it's dangerous.
Yeah, but there's a senator somewhere that likes it. Like, I just, uh, it was completely sidebar, but I went to a music festival in Holmes County over the weekend, and as soon as we rolled in, I saw a car with a bunch of raver kids pulled over, and the county sheriff had like all their stuff pulled out, and they were doing like full searches. Everybody was in handcuffs. And I've been to a handful of festivals and, well, quite a few festivals, and I've never seen that. And then I was like, somebody here does not want this festival. It's at Vortex Springs. And I did a little research on it, and sure enough, there was some county thing get together, and they didn't have enough time to draft ordinance, and you know, so they basically raided the festival. They had, you know, the county made sure that anybody that was enjoying themselves was never to come back. Me and my wife left Friday because I was like, man, I am not about any of this noise. And sure enough, one of the councilman guys was a bail bondsman, and that was his business. And he was like, you know, just probably raking in the cash. And it's really unfortunate because this kind of crony capitalism happens at our right at our feet, and anything short of getting involved in politics, it feels like sometimes it's just such an uphill battle. I feel like when the not even necessarily the constituency, because there's not like a line of people out the door when we have these meetings, but it's the council people themselves that are sort of making these decisions on behalf of the 10% of people that go. And maybe I've made that number up. You have to tell me, but I feel it's a very low number of people that vote in county elections, and it's mostly an older demographic. Would I be right?
I agree with you on that one. In fact, one of the
Yeah.
things that I recently brought up at a council meeting is the idea of turning Destin Harbor into a mooring harbor. Like one of the issues that we're having is our code compliance officers. They have no jurisdiction on the water, so they have these ordinances in place against delivery guys, and they can't enforce it. So idea was to do this mooring harbor idea to where we can have jurisdiction on the water. But not only that, all these boats are breaking free every time a storm happens, and we can't do anything about it. So I brought up the idea. Someone brought up how mooring harbors are controversial, but I'm gonna keep on pushing for it. Just try to see how we can move forward with it.
Can you explain a little bit what a mooring harbor is?
Yeah. So the example Destin currently is a free slash safe harbor. So anyone can come in there and for safe passage and to ride out storms, for example, or anchor up for what is it, 72 hours, and then they're supposed to move their boat to another location. But with the mooring harbor is we would have to get mooring balls, and these mooring balls would be like stuck in the ground to where they won't drag during storms. And then, of course, we'd have to offer upland facilities like restrooms, showers, sewage pumps, dinghy docks. That way they can actually come to the upland facilities. And it's just an opportunity to maybe attract new types of people. I mean, there's a lot of loopers that come on through, and in our area, there's nowhere for them to stop. They have to keep on trekking through to the first mooring harbor area, which is somewhere down in what, probably Tampa area, I'm guessing. So
Wow.
Yeah, now I know in Key West there was public mooring like outside of the I mean it was literally just kind of in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico, which is it's a different type. It's more the Gulf of Mexico and Key West is protected, where the Atlantic side is the more rough side. Now I have no idea, and people would dinghy back and forth, and then I know Key West has been dealing with basically uninspected vessels acting as shuttles to that area because people are doing like Airbnbs on their sailboats out in on the so they have the same thing with the mooring balls and they have
Mhm.
big cement moorings down below. And now the Coast Guard's been I had somebody reach out to me from the group who was doing it legally, no six or under, and the FWC and Coast Guard came in and hung them up. So I don't know if they have a similar. I mean, so if it was a mooring harbor, would that be just for public use then?
so the mooring balls, they would pay to use them, and then that way
Gotcha.
the harbor master can actually um, kind of control, I guess, the usage of the balls. For instance, like right now, we have a lot of derelict vessels, some at-risk vessels in our harbor.
Yeah.
This would be a way of preventing that from ever happening, because
Mm.
there's certain standards that they have to be met to use these mooring fields.
Then they'll all just come to the sound where we have some. I had these crazy guys, their boat breakaway sailboat. The guy was like chomping on a cigar and trying to pull a sailboat off my docks with with like a John boat with like a 10 horsepower motor. And I was like, get the fuck out of here. Get it, go on, man. I'm like, we'll get the sailboat off. He's like, it's my sailboat. I'm like, it's fine, but you're not doing anything with that John boat, dude. Like, the currents are ripping, and I'm like, my guys actually know how to drive boats. It's not a 10 horsepower. Like, we'll get you off and away from the docks. And he's like, okay. I was like, fucking Christ. Yeah, I think that's all of our future, all the water sports guys that like end up like getting decimated from all this regulation and all this oversaturation and shit. We'll just go hook our pontoon boats out in the Santa Rosa Sound and live on them.
Yeah.
Like a nice bimini top to keep us from the
Yeah.
elements.
You know, John, we talk about a lot of this in our past episodes about if you have problems with your city regarding livery regulation or charter regulation, the best thing to do is to get involved. Now,
Yeah, be
obviously,
proactive.
not everybody can get on city council easily. John got on city council just because he has such respect in our community. And I mean, it wasn't even a really a typical election. You got appointed by the current city council, but now you got to go for re-election here in November. Is that
Exactly.
right? Yeah.
Yeah,
but
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 I started off on a whole bunch of committees too, and I think
Yeah.
that's where I kind of proved who I was.
Yeah, and the thing is like you saw issues, you saw your business potentially at risk, you got involved to protect the integrity. You're founding member of the Watersport Coalition that we started, but I'm starting to hear more. Like look at in our group in Georgia, I guess they're putting more boating regulation. South Carolina, they're putting more boating. I'm hearing more states going through similar situations that Florida are. They're just now getting to it. So like Florida is like ground zero. We're learning in it. I think Destin's probably light years ahead of most cities that have boating problems. And there's a lot to learn from what we're going through.
I
What we're
like the
going through.
positive spin you put on that. You're
Yeah,
light
I'm
years
just
ahead of
we are.
fucking over
I
small business.
I think we're well ahead of most cities that are going through like what we've already been through. Basically, that's what I'm putting at. But I want to change gear here real quick because, John, I've known you for a long time, and we talk on the show about like digital marketing, marketing your business, and John doesn't do any of that. Like, I asked him how much he spends on marketing, and he said, "Oh, maybe a few $100s a year." And I'm just like, no. But it's true because I don't see
I,
John anywhere. John, and so I'm like, John, you're gonna have to share like what you're doing because you built up this amazing business. I mean, Trip Shock does a little bit for you, but very, very little. Because you do so much direct, you don't really necessarily need to, like, what can you share? Like, what do you do to build your business without spending any money on marketing?
so I spend $250 a year, and the only reason is it's a specific condo that my dad built a relationship with 20 years ago. And if it wasn't for that relationship, I would be spending $0 a year on advertising. Um, I think what it was for me is that when we first started, I know you guys are big Disney fans, and every time I went to Disney, I'm like, I want to treat my customers how I'm treated here.
Hmm.
And so as soon as the customer is coming down our hill, we're there with with a cart, meeting them, telling them where to park, unloading them, showing them how to check in. It's all about building that customer experience for them to where something they'll remember. Um, and most of my customers are all returning customers. In fact, I actually have kids that rent for me. And even grandkids that rent for me now when they used to come with their grandparents. So whatever we did, we were doing it right from the very get-go. And just having good equipment, keep the equipment updated, and if the boat broke down, I mean, you bent over backwards for them. I mean, whatever you could do to make it right for them, and stuff like that goes a long way. And
Yeah.
so that's saves so much money in advertising, and yeah, you send me a lot of business, but certain times a year I don't I shut it off because I don't need it. So
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things there. I think one of them you just said, right? Yeah, 20 years ago. And I think that's like, right, that's I think that's the so we get a lot of repeat business too. We've really seen a lot of repeat business going in, and this being our seventh year because of exactly what you just said. And when I go down to your location and I see the way you have everything set up, you have the auxiliary coast guard do the inspections, like it's all about the details for you. And I think that I think people don't
Mm.
realize, I don't think anybody actually realizes that the what you go through to make sure the details are covered from, and not just the front facing customer experience, but also from the safety experience. I know you run a super tight ship. You're like one of the only guys that I think when we first knew that we wanted to put like GPS trackers on the boat. I
Mm.
think you were like the only guy I called that like actually had GPS trackers on the boat. So a lot of this stuff when I was doing rentals, I was like, yeah, I've done water sports, but I'm not like Mr. Boat Rental guy. I was a captain, So I'm like, why doesn't anybody have GPS trackers? I was like looking at everybody else's stuff and kind of going by their
Yeah.
playbook. And then I saw that you had yours, and we had a conversation about it. I'm like, man, this like 100% makes sense. So I think it's all of the details that you go through that make for a better experience. Less, obviously, less interruption with having down boats because you have a meticulous maintenance schedule. Uh, Less issues with FWC and Coast Guard because your boats are all branded and everybody knows you go through the auxiliary Coast Guard inspection. So I imagine those officers on the water see your boats and they're like, this you're not getting pulled over for running a bareboat illegal charter. Like they know who you are, they know what you do, and you've been doing that for 20 years. And I mean, I really want to have a $0 marketing budget, John.
But
well, and
go ahead, John.
to add on to the Coast Guard Auxiliary, not everyone realizes, but most people fail because of nav lights, not having nav lights at work. I mean, so it's really easy
Yep.
to get Coast Guard inspection by go getting a PVC a tube pipe and getting battery operated lights with batteries vacuum sealed. Once you do that and you just show them that it works, then it's really easy to get Coast Guard inspected.
Yeah. John,
Yeah,
one thing.
and I think all that stuff really just ends up. It really does make a more meaningful customer experience, and I
Mhm.
don't think when you see a lot of the pushback from the residents of the area, like the most commonly heard thing that you hear is they'll just rent to anybody with a pulse. And
Yeah.
yeah, again, man, I just want to kind of shine a spotlight on your operation. Being probably definitely one of the other operators. I know a lot of operators in this area got way better over the last 2 years,
Yeah.
but
100%. I mean,
I've
even with
but
the GPSs, though, adding on to that, one thing that we started doing is putting speed alarms on the vessel. So if they get caught speeding, the alarm goes off on the boat. And I've actually had a sheriff call me up and said, "We actually heard the alarm, turned back around, and actually pulled over your customer because the alarm went off on the boat for them speeding in the no wake
yeah.
zones."
I,
and Greg, I know you're
yeah.
itching, but I
Yeah.
gotta tell him this one
Yeah.
thing. And I know we're getting close to time, but I gotta tell you again. When I was on the road, and I think I've made a mention of it because this is like one of the
Mhm.
coolest products, and I really hope it comes to market. But I feel like this is something you love. These guys had like the most ragtag pontoon companies, like I mean, like where you could just tell that they had. I don't mean ragtag. I just mean that they had engineered a lot of their stuff. And when we went up to their office to get them signed up for boat tests, they had showed me this system that they created, that hardware that they had, like basically monitors that came back to a dashboard that they had created that had everything from engine hours to the amount of fuel to the heat of the engine, the RPMs of the engine. They knew every single thing, and like if it went to like a certain throttle point, like if they knew they were like jamming on the throttle, it shut the boat down, and then they would get a notification saying the boat had been shut down because they increased throttle too fast. And the guy had an entire like parts thing up in his little, it was a house there. It was like a house in Bonita Springs. And I don't know. When I was looking at it, I thought of you. I was like, man, of all the people in the world, I think that would like love this, because they're not even close to bringing it to market yet. But they just do it for their own vessels at the moment. But I was like, man, this is like John would love this, is what I
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
thought.
John's all up. If it's like anything to do with water sport tech, like he's the first one to get his hands on it. And I mean, John, you have like ID scanners when they come in online. I mean, we were like the first one to implement a lot of that. I mean, John was instrumental in helping engineer WaveRes. Like a lot of his ideas and concepts are actually built into the software, beta testing it. But one thing I want to tell about John, and the 20 years he's been in business and all this time I've known him, and I've looked at hundreds of water sport companies through the years. And John started as a pontoon kayak jet ski company, and he still is a pontoon jet ski company in the same location. Now he has grown, but he has stayed true and probably said no a billion times to expansion and other locations and tour boats. I mean, by now, maybe he could have had a multi-passenger tour boat or something, but John stayed really true to what he knew best. And I know, John, for marketing, I know you say you don't spend money on marketing, but you do these things like every repeat customer you give a discount to. So you are proactively giving them reason, but you're the consistency for customers. They know that when they book with Luther's, they're going to get a great product. They're going to get a small discount. They're going to get good service. Like you've built that into your business, and generation after generation of customers, they just know to expect that. So, if you're thinking like, man, I just started my company and this is really hard. I'm spending all this money on marketing. So it's going to get better. Like once you build those relationships and offer good service, it does pay off in the end. And John's a perfect example of putting in the work and building relationships and just kind of waiting, waiting for that
Hmm.
kind of saturation, but done a phenomenal job. And I mean, there's just and your employees are phenomenal. Employees have been with you. Most of them have been with you for quite a while. So I know that's a hard thing to do these days.
Oh yeah.
Greg,
Both my managers been with me, I think, 12 years now, and I think my newest employee, I think, is I got one that's just started this year, but besides that, I think 2 or 3 years that they've been with me. They stay with me until they go off to get their real big boy job.
And what like for the people that have been there for 12 years, like what do you think like really makes the difference of keeping people that long?
I mean, for me, it's stability. I never have to worry about anything. Like they know exactly what to do. In fact, one of my managers always says, "Well, what would John do in this situation?" And they know what to do.
Yeah.
do you ever have instances where you're like, did you think about this, and they have a better idea than what you came up with?
So when they first started, I would always say no, no, no every time. And now it's whenever they come up an idea, I'm like, run with it as long as I don't have to assist.
Yeah, I frequently have I go, well, have you guys thought about this? And then they're like, yeah, we did that, but we did it like this. And I was like, ah, that's better than I would have done it. But here's a pencil and a piece of paper. Use that because what you're doing cost me $79, and I am not paying that. I got a good Greg. I got a good one, and I know
Okay.
we're about time, but it's
Okay.
funny. Like I think it was like one of the last time I took Watersports phones. I had somebody called up and they had like a big group and they wanted two boats, and they're like, oh, it's between you and Luther's, and I was like, oh, I was like, man. I got him like, man, I got nothing bad to say about Luther's. I was like, if it's between us and Luther's, I was like, it's the same kind of company. I'm like, you're going to get great customer service. You're going to get X, Y, and Z. And then I was like, then I just sold them on Fort Walton being better than the Destin Harbor. I was like, you're going to do all these great things, except for you're not going to have to wait in line. You're not going to have to park at the Destin Harbor. You're not going to have to pay for parking. You're not going to have to deal with the traffic, yada, yada, yada. But apples to apples, same experience, except you get to go to do a nice ride through the historic or through the Gulf National Seashore if you come for us. You get to drive the boat, not just to a no wake zone. And then they're like, yeah, we're gonna book with you. And I'm like, sorry, John.
Oh, do they rent for me every year now, or do I have them back?
I have no idea. I think probably after like coming to Fort Walton Beach and not seeing the pizzazz of the Destin Harbor, they're probably back with you. Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Well,
John, you said you had some things you want to talk about National Boating Week. I want to give you the floor. And
yeah.
Yeah. All right. So May 18th through the 24th is National Safe Boating Week. So anyone that's actually in our area, U.S. Coast Guard Station Destin on May 20th is actually doing a media day. They're actually going to have open house. They're going to be talking boat safety. They're actually going to bring a helo. They're going to do a helo demonstration. And the cool part, this is actually going to be a test run because NASBLA actually said that Florida is going to be the hub for Operation Dry Water this year. And from what I'm hearing, Destin is actually going to be the location. And
Correct.
Operation Dry Water, it's actually going to be from July 4th through the 6th. And then one other thing is May 24th is actually wear your life jacket to work day.
oh,
Oh, that's weird. May 24th. That is my day off. Can I wear? I used to get in trouble because I always wore an impact vest because it's not a PFD, but they just look cool and made it look like I had muscles. You know, impact vests they have like abs built into them, so I'd like wear that and then wear my shirt over. They're like, man, I got jacked. I'm like, no, it's just my life vest. And that Coast Guard would be like, not so. That's not a life jacket. That's an impact vest. I'm like, ugh.
so John, how can people, if they have any questions or comments, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, yeah, y'all can reach me at John at lutherspontoon.com. That's JOHN, and then at lutherspontoon.com. And I mean, if you want to talk what you can do to get involved with your local government, or even just how to approach them with any issues that could be coming upon you, or whatever, reach out and I'll see how I can help you.
Yeah, John's one that will always answer your phone call and give you time, which I think it's kind of why I think the three of us do so well together. Like we're always here to help. You know, there's no preconditions to reaching
Next
out
year
to us.
it'll be John Luther's at floridasenate.gov.
From Miami.
Please go down there and set some of these fuckers straight. My God.
And as always, make sure to check out our website, watersportpodcast.com. We'll have the link to the conference so you can get your tickets. Make sure to buy them early. And then we got our Facebook group, Water Sport and Boat Tour Operators. Just search for it on Facebook and join.
And leave us a 5-star review on the
Leave
podcast.
5-star review. We haven't had a 5-star review in a long time. We just
jerks.
haven't had any reviews in a long time. So, anyways, we need a review. Give us a review. And John, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it. And all that you do for the industry and the city and just being a great operator. It's all much appreciated. So, as always, everyone, keep it awkward.